Finding the best gaming monitors with my monitor comparisons. Guys, today we're going to look at a gaming monitor in ultra-wide format, the AOC Gaming Monitor CU34G2XP. That's a very affordable, popular model in the 21:9 aspect ratio. And what benefits can you have from this monitor? What could be some downsides? What should you consider? After all, this monitor can deliver 180 Hz and has the WQHD resolution, which, while it is pretty popular, there are a few things to consider. So let's do a quick unboxing. You can also use the navigation in the video below for jumping to the corresponding parts. Let's get rolling, guys. And yeah, these types of gaming monitors become increasingly popular. Ultra-wide, WQHD resolution in 180 Hz. A lot of people want these high frame rates, but there are some downsides, possible potential downsides, depending on how you look at it, associated with it. So I'm just pulling this out here. Guys, make sure you have a little bit of a comfortable workspace where you can do that, or invite over a friend or do it with your family that you can assemble that properly. Let's quickly look into the box. We have the HDMI cable right here, as well as the DisplayPort cable. That's pretty straightforward. And assembling it, you also want to take the stand first, take the lower portion, put that in there, and you can fixate it by hand first. To double check, take a screwdriver as well and make sure it's really a tight fit so that you have like a stable stand, which in the next step we can simply align here, give it a little bit of a push, and it clicks into place. So guys, it's pretty fast, pretty straightforward. I like how these monitors ship. It's very easy to assemble. You can easily do that on your own, but as you can see here, be a little bit careful, remove the styrofoam and then the protective packaging here. And that's the AOC gaming monitor ready and assembled to go. Terrific, guys. Then now let's have a closer look at the AOC gaming monitor, which is curved. So first things I'm going to do is I'm going to walk you through some steps that you can consider, and we should look at the AOC G-Menu software and also what hardware requirements you might need to drive such a high frame rate monitor. First up are the panel types. That's always a consideration. You can see here a list. Twisted pneumatic, vertical alignment, and in-plane switching. Normally, I would say I'm a fan of the in-plane switching. For example, in-plane switching, I did a Dell monitor recently. That was only 27:9 WQHD resolution, but it was IPS. And in general, I tend to lean a little bit more towards IPS panels. However, since this is a wider monitor with a curvature and a much higher frame rate, you might want to consider also the aspect ratios. And an aspect ratio, a good way I can show that to you is by quickly changing my wallpaper, the screen background. And as you can see, that would be a normal, let's say 27-inch 16:9. So if you had a normal 27-inch monitor, that would approximately what it would be like. And since we have an ultra-wide here, 21:9, you get this extra space here and this extra space here, which maybe it doesn't look that much, but it really adds up and makes it much more immersive in gaming. Of course, there's also the so-called super wide. Good example always, the Samsung Odyssey, the super wide. I don't have them that often because they're just so massive and super expensive. But yeah, if you want a super wide, that would be a 32:9. But it's just a 34-inch with 21:9. I think this is what the majority of people who want to use a monitor primarily for gaming are going to go for. Of course, if you don't game a lot, I would say it's perfectly fine to stick with the normal 16:9. That's what most people buy. But if you need the extra space, work with multiple documents, or you want to game, then ultra-wide would probably be what most people are getting. Now, another important consideration is when you buy a monitor. Okay, personally, for example, I like to change the brightness during the day a lot. Sometimes it's very bright in my room, sometimes it's darker, so I'm changing it multiple times during the day. What I really like, for example, are the ASO monitors. They have like controls just right at the front. I think that's the most convenient. Then you have other monitors like the Dell and the LGs, where you have the buttons behind the monitor. But with this AOC, it's even a little bit more complicated. You have the buttons at the bottom to trigger this on-screen menu, and then you have to fumble through the on-screen menu to make some changes. That's something I don't like as much, but
that's not a problem because AOC has this so-called G-Menu software where through the monitor cable, through the DisplayPort cable, you can control everything. And I think that's a consideration that when you buy a monitor, it really should have some kind of control software. In this case, for multiple devices, but I select the monitor and then you can see the AOC monitor has even presets. You can create custom presets or you can just use some for high frame rates or for racing games and such. I'm just going to click advanced and that always takes a moment to load. And then you can change the brightness level. That's the setting that I would change the most, but there are also plenty of other settings like color temperature and so on. So please, when you buy a new monitor, make sure it has a monitor control software because you want to have the convenience to effortlessly change some settings of the monitor, such as brightness, whenever you want. That's for me, that's definitely a criterion. So, other thing to consider, since it's a high frame rate monitor with 180 Hz and since it has more pixels than a normal 27:9, like I showed you earlier with the aspect ratios, you want to make sure your computer can render these frames. And as an example, that's my system right here. It has an RTX 4070, which is a relatively modern card, but it's still in an AM4 system. So it's maybe slightly, my graphics card is maybe slightly CPU bottlenecked. And this game, Titanfall, real recommendation. Let's quickly run a test and let's see how much FPS we get in this Titanfall game. And since it's an older game, as you can see here, it has no problem rendering the 180 frames per second. So if you have certain shooters or competitive shooters, please check your games that you can deliver these frames and then you should be fine. And yeah, this game is actually really fun. Here I have like some time device. I can time jump in this research lab and escape the research lab with this time device, which is kind of fun. So why don't we just see, because here the door is blocked and I can jump into the past, open the door and try to escape the facility, or I can jump back into the present where everything has collapsed. But switching gears real quick, for example, Cyberpunk, that's a much more modern game. And again, I put the correct resolution here and I set the graphics settings to ray tracing medium. Let's quickly look here. And that's with the RTX 4070 on a super wide monitor, I'm getting 95 FPS, 97, almost 100 FPS, pretty close to it with Cyberpunk and moderate, medium ray tracing. If I wanted to get the 180 FPS that monitor is capable of, guys, I would have to drop the graphics settings down, or I would have to get a new AM5 board and CPU, or switch out the CPU, or maybe get an RTX 4080 even. So really, please check that for yourself, what games you play, and that your computer, because it might be tempting. Some people, they might think, oh wow, that's a very affordable, high frame rate, or ultra wide curved monitor, and it is. I mean, for me that's fine. It's not a competitive game. I'm fine with around 100 FPS in games such as this. But guys, some people, I'm digressing a little bit. Some people say, oh, NVIDIA graphics card. No, I don't like NVIDIA graphics card. I stick with AMD. Ray tracing is not that important to me. Guys, I can tell you from experience, even the medium ray tracing, it lends a different atmosphere to the game. It makes it much more high quality. It's hard to describe because it's not like a texture thing. It's more of a lighting thing, and the lighting, I think it just creates such a different atmosphere that makes the game, to me, more enjoyable. So I would always play with ray tracing, just as a small side note. Granted, the ray tracing is not optimized the same in every game. With Cyberpunk, it's very optimized. But I'm digressing
a little bit here, so let's wrap this up. So what's my conclusion for this AOC gaming monitor? Guys, it's a very affordable choice. I really like this monitor. If I would primarily game, I wouldn't even mind the VA panel. As I told you, I'm a little bit of a monitor snob, so I really love the IPS panels since I'm doing a little bit more YouTube and creative work and maybe some light color grading. That's not what a VA panel would be for, but it's a gaming monitor, and for that it works really, really well. I walked you through some benchmarks. You've seen older games with my hardware setup, no problem, but more demanding titles like Cyberpunk, yeah, you want to make sure you have a powerful enough graphics card like I showed you. Since this monitor can deliver 180 Hertz, you need to have, depending on the game and depending on which settings you run, you need the appropriate high power graphics card and CPU. So keep that a little bit in mind. That adds additional cost potentially, but it also depends on which titles you play. So please check that out yourself. Guys, what other monitor videos do you want to see? What other monitors are you interested in? And leave a subscribe. I see you as a subscriber in the next video. Awesome for tuning in. Stay awesome. Have fun, guys.